We have the save the dates here. Most of you are Shelters for Israel members, but you'll understand why we're talking about it in a minute. And these are flyers for our annual 70th anniversary luncheon in August, and we hope that you guys will come and you'll learn a little bit more about Shelters for Israel. Also, some of you have been so generous and unsolicited, even asked to see if you could contribute in any way to today's program, since this is a labor of love for all of us. And if you are interested, please look for Kati Weinberger. Where are you, Kati? She's right there, and she will be very happy to take your donations. So again, welcome. Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, former chief Ashkenazi rabbi of Israel and a Buchenwald child survivor, says that he approaches his own personal memories of the Shoah through two phrases in the Torah. The first is Zechor, remember, and the second is Lo Tishkach, don't forget. He comments that at first it seems like the Torah is saying the same thing twice. Why do we need both? If you remember, you don't forget, and if you don't forget, you remember. But he says that there's a difference. Zechor is about the actions that we take, establishing important centers and memorials like Yad Vashem, March of the Living, memorial services such as that today. And Lo Tishkach, on the other end, tells us that we will never be able to forget. Even if you want to forget, you will not be allowed to. You will be reminded by others. The appearance now of anti-Semitism all over the world makes it so that we don't forget the days of the Holocaust. But also, the rabbi says, you won't be able to forget because the experience is so deep that it will never be erased. You all see my name on the program. Several of you know me. My name is Myra Gabay, but I'd like to give you my full name, and please forgive me if I become a little emotional. My name is Myra Renee Reisman Gabay, and my Hebrew name is Miriam-Kayla. I am named after my maternal grandmother Clara, my maternal grandfather Meyer, my paternal grandmother Margit, and my little aunt Renee, my mother's sister, who was not even allowed to reach her 5th birthday. My mother, Hedy Davidovitz Reisman, spent much of her childhood in Yasina, and then the last few years in Hust before being deported to Auschwitz. My late dear father, Karl Reisman, grew up in Berksaz before escaping the ghetto and labor camp to go into hiding in Budapest. And then their extended families were in Iski and Volove and Tiszaulak and a few in Erdőbenya and in Budapest in Hungary. So I am here along with my sister Anne and my cousins and you, my Shelters family, my Carpathian family, to remember and memorialize the so many family members who came from the Carpathian region and who were murdered in the Shoah, and also to honor the many survivors who are here with us today, and those who are no longer with us, but who remained alive despite the unimaginable odds, to allow us to remain Jews and to support the miraculous state of Israel, which just celebrated its 90th anniversary of independence. I am the very proud co-president of Shelters for Israel, and all of the planning committee members today, Kati Weinberger, Clara Firestone, and Mark David, are also Shelters members. Shelters for Israel had already been founded when our parents arrived here. They were survivors looking to be with others from their hometowns and their nearby communities, and they created their own new community here with those who they had known in the past or who had their shared experiences. And they were looking for a way to support the state of Israel, which was their passion, their dream, and their everything, second only to their own families. And so Shelters for Israel became the social heart for many of these survivors. And we, the second and third generations, are so proud to be here today with all of you, honoring the memory of our parents and our families. Please join me as we sing together and accompanied by these wonderful musicians, Cookie and Neil, the Star Spangled Banner, followed by the Hatikva.
Thank you, Myra. Thank you, honored guests, rabbis, survivors. My name is Mark David. Yiddish is our cultural inheritance, and I don't think it should be squandered. I think it should be savored and appreciated. And I think that it is an important part of why we are here. I give Yiddish a bit of a higher priority because 85% of the victims of the Holocaust were Yiddish speakers, and because Yiddish is on the verge of being lost as a living language. Before I come back to that point, I want to say one thing, first by way of thanks and appreciation. The Carpathian Jews who stayed in Zaakarpatskaya tried valiantly and heroically to keep their Jewish, including Yiddish culture, alive. They kept Yiddish alive, and they kept shuls alive for decades. When they came to Jewish areas such as Los Angeles, they were very strong, and they are very strong contributors to Jewish life here and all over the world, Israel and in Europe. And far from the stereotype of Soviet Jews needing remedial learning to find out about their Jewish roots, they had and still have much they can share with us. I don't need to tell many of you that. I admit that this is a story that has not been well enough understood by me and by, I think, my generation. And I think that should change. And one example is this Haskara, this memorial. It is really thanks to one person from Zaakarpatskaya, Kati Weinberger, who saw that this was being done in other cities. In fact, many of her friends and relatives were doing it. And she said, let's do this here in Los Angeles, and she got us involved, and we were very grateful. So I want to say thank you, Kati Weinberger. Very, very brief history. Before there was Carpathian Jewry, Jews lived in Ukraine. Galician Jews fled Khmelnytsky's Cossacks there, starting in 1648. Then there was a false messiah movement that was the low point. Then there was the rebirth started with the Hasidic movement. That was the antidote to that problem that revitalized the Jewish movement that was especially strong in our area. The Hasidic courts bloomed in our area, and with it the Yiddish language and music. Hasidim believed in dance and joyfulness. Unlike our Litvak Jewish brothers to the north and our German Jewish brothers to the west. Then fast forward to the eve of catastrophe, the Holocaust. We lost so much, including our Hasidic brothers. They say, I just heard one person say that over 100 entire Hasidic hoifs or Hasidic groups were completely lost without a trace. They've built back, but they were completely lost. Anyways, skipping over, this is a very brief taste. Carpathian Jews who survived from the pre-war generation, as many of you know, and I'm just always amazed by it. I just want to talk about it here and appreciate them. They are among the most multilingual people I know. Usually they would know Yiddish, German, Hungarian, one of Romanian, Czech, or Slovak, the local Ukrainian dialect, Ruthenian maybe, and Hebrew. Yiddish was very widely known and spoken by most Jews throughout most of the Carpathian, with some exceptions, but by and large, this contrasts to the situation with Jews in most of Hungary and most of Czechoslovakia, where Yiddish had lost most of its speakers to either Hungarian, Czech, Slovak, or German. I've heard many times how multilingualism helped our Carpathian people when they were in the Holocaust, how they acted as go-betweens among the Jews who only had Nebuch one language or two languages. In fact, my mother's cousin, T.B. Oliva Sholem, wrote in his memoirs the following about one event. I became an unwilling translator for my capo, Willie, and the Vorarbeiter, Ali. They spoke only German, and many in our group spoke only Hungarian. Besides, they needed somebody to translate in their transactions with the Poles. Having learned Hungarian during the past 5 years in Hungary and knowing Polish as a Slavic language, I had no problem translating into German or vice versa. The position did not carry any extra privileges, nor did it exempt me from work, but it did enable me to work less and make some separate deals with the Poles. After each successful deal, Ali gave me some cigarettes or bread, even some soup in the evening. At first, this caused some jealousy in our ranks, but later everyone recognized that having me friendly with the German prisoners, especially with Ali, helped us all. So the Carpathian Jews were very, very multilingual, and among that Yiddish. So we're going to focus on Yiddish. The Carpathian Jews were always distinct back to their distinction under the Czechs. They were the poorest, they were distinct from the Czech Jews in general. They were the poorest, they were the most religious, and they were Yiddish speaking. Most of the Czech and Slovak were becoming monolingual, with some exceptions. Under the Hungarians, the same thing. They were the poorest, most religious, and by and large Yiddish speaking. The Jews of our area were extremely musical, and you're going to get a sample of our musical traditions from these two fine musicians that are here today, and I will introduce them in a second. I want to give you a little bit of my connection and tell you what I do a bit, and hopefully introduce you to a bit of Yiddish language and song from the Carpathians all at the same time, technology willing. My late mother was from Jasina, born in 1930. When the Hungarians came, they moved to Hust, and in 1944 they were deported from there to Auschwitz. She and her sister, Hattie Reisman, Zulanga Yor, she's still with us, who is Myra Gabe's mother, were the only survivors of their immediate family. Make a long story short, I grew up in Middle America, but at some point, encouraged by my mother, I began learning Yiddish. I got so involved, I started a Yiddish radio show and started interviewing people in Yiddish. I moved to Boston, and among other things, I met there Henke Snetsky, who was a founder and leading light of the klezmer movement and the movement to preserve Yiddish language and culture. He's part of a long tradition of preserving our roots and our history, which goes back to Yivo and Shimon Dubnov. This isn't a new thing. And he introduced me to a fellow named Moshe Hollander, who's a landsman from our area. In fact, he's related to people here. He passed away a couple of years ago, and his cousin is here, whom I've met with and become close to here, Martela Friedman, Zulanga Yor. Anyway, I interviewed him, and then I got to know his friend in Miami, Mr. Mermelstein, and I got to Zulanga Yor, I hope, and I got to know his cousin Martela. So and I played them on my radio show, so I'm going to play you a brief 2-minute excerpt. You're probably sick of hearing me talking, so you should hear a little Yiddish and a little bit of the sounds of the Carpathian Mountains, some of the beautiful religious Yiddish songs that were created. Purim Spiel, a Friday night Yiddish song, and a little bit of talking, and just a Friday night niggin, a religious tune.
Schaffen der Welt, hat Gott in dem Freitag gemacht, mit einem Einmal der Welt dahergestellt, fängt in dem Freitag gemacht.
Sind gekommen Freitag auf der Nacht, in Schabbat in der Früh ist jeder gegangen zu der Schule. Wie war es gewesen? Ist man gegangen, selber im Winter. Jemand gehabt, ein Schabelsbräu, vergemacht, ein Feier, in der Schule, und gekommen, zu leiden Haus in Dussertein. Und zum Gurnisch gedacht, so, ein Haus gewesen, Nordjüdisch. In Cheder, die Engellich, wegen mir aufsteigen, Sommer oder Winter. Und wenn ich mein Winter ist, wo im Winter wie jetzt in Boston. Und hat gelernt, in der Früh gedauert, halb 7 sind wir weg. After that, we were in the Czechische school. She went in the Czechische school for the Yidden and the Czechen. In the Goa, we had auch a public school, but a Goische, with a Galach-Fried zu sein. In Tschechei, haben alle gewesen 15 Jahre auf den Zerweggenehmen, aber ich habe nicht gewusst, was so mit diesem bis nach der 30.
Das Wabel des Fremdes, sie setzt den zum Tisch, in Glitten, in Kiddisch, in Langten, der Fisch.
Ich gehe wollen zum Gespielen, Freila bin ich an der Fahrt. Ich esse, trinken, tanzen, springen, und traurig sein sogar. Es kann sein, ein Schnei, ich tanze, schrei, hurra. Komm mal her, ich Musik spielen, muss ich tanzen gleich. Komm mal her, ich Musik spielen, kick ich auf keine Sache. Komm, hab ich nach Musik daher, kick ich auf keine Sache.
Okay, and that we have, by the way, Martela Friedman, who sang her family's Purim spiel. That was very good. And I could see her singing along with her cousin Moishel Hollander. I guess that was a well-known family song, Freitag Zanach. So those beautiful songs, I think, were created by their family, and I think many people were talented and able to sing, and it was a very musical people, and still is. And we must appreciate that culture, and I'm glad to know those people, and they should live a lot longer. We should appreciate them. Very briefly, I want to, so I hope that explains my interest in it, and I hope you'll appreciate more of it after you hear some of these musicians. And so I hope that explains why I have these tape recordings. And I want to ask that you pay attention to the music that we're going to play for you. We're going to play a variety of things, some gypsy style, some klezmer style, some Yiddish folk songs, some nigunim. And I would like to just introduce the musicians that we have for you that are playing for us tonight. One second. Neil Brostov has soloed as a pianist with the LA Philharmonic and performed with numerous other orchestras and symphonies throughout the region and the country. He has worked professionally in Jewish music in Los Angeles since 1971 and serves the international Jewish community as a resource. Active as a chamber music recitalist, Mr. Brostov performed regularly at the Monday evening concerts at LACMA, on tour with the American Ballet Theater, and he has recorded for motion pictures and television. He has also participated as chamber and orchestral pianist in European concerts and festivals. Cookie, or Marlene Segelstein, received a master's degree in music from Yale, and she played under the great Leonard Bernstein and Seiji Ozawa at Tanglewood. In 1984, Cookie joined the New Haven Symphony, where she became assistant principal violist in 1981, a position she held until moving to California. Cookie has toured the world with her trio Varetsky Pass that specializes in the 19th and 20th century Jewish instrumental folk music of the Carpathian Mountains. Cookie is also second generation, with both parents survivors from the Carpathian Mountains. And now I'd like to invite them to play, and Cookie, feel free to give any information that you'd like as intro. Thank you.
This music that we're going to play for you was something that I was forced to play as a child, and I hated it. I just didn't want to do it. So my rebellion was to study viola, classical music. But I had my own children, and what happens when you have your children? You start to examine your history. So I was lucky enough that both parents were alive, and I could interview them as if I were interviewing musical informants in the region of music I'm interested in. So the melodies that we're going to play for you are actually Hasidic melodies. We're going to play 3 of them, and although most likely at least 2 of them originated in Poland, like many of the Hasidic melodies, they were very popular in Munkach. One was a processional that actually we know as the Bobov Rebbe's Niggin, but in Munkach it was played often as a wedding processional. As a matter of fact, in the DP camp of Bari, my parents got married to this processional. And then we'll play 2 other Hasidic tunes that we collected by sitting with some cantors in Europe and in Israel, remembering what their fathers sang. So these are 3 Hasidic niggins. From where from, we don't know, but they lived very happily in the Carpathian region.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Our next speaker is Mr. Amram Deutsch. Many know him as the Gabbai of the Beis Naftali on La Brea. He's is from Siget, a survivor of Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. He's going to tell us about that. He's also is a second cousin of the late Elie Wiesel. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Deutsch. Also, he's a hard worker. He speaks, I think, every day of the week at the Museum of Tolerance. Is that right?
I don't speak too loud. I hope you can all hear me. I appreciate Mark. I thanked him for inviting me for a special occasion like this. Usually I work 4 days, 5 days a week, and I have a lot of people here that know me from the camp, and they know me from here, especially those that I know, half of the people here, going back a long, long time ago, especially Mr. Langer, going back for a long time. So my name is Amram Deutsch, as you heard. I happen to be a survivor from 1944. I would say the last day of Pesach, after Achar Shel Pesach, the Germans came into our city, not knowing who they were, because you have to understand, we lived in the dark those days. We had no telephones, we had no radios, we had no knowledge. There's a war going on. I was 90 years old, never left home, never knew what it means to be away from home, and all of a sudden, we were ordered to go away from home, to go to a ghetto. Fortunate enough, I was 90 years old, I did not go to the ghetto. I was already working the following day. We were taken away with the military. We were working in a little city about 8 miles away from the city. It's called Polyan-Kabaletsk. Have you heard of that name? It's a nice Jewish little city, about 8 miles away from the city. But I want to tell you about that moment when I arrived in that little town. When I saw the Jews were taken out that time, when we came with the same train, they were taken away to go to the ghetto. And I recognized a lot of the people that I knew before, because you have to remember, in Sigurd was a year market every year, and the farmers every year they used to come to the city to sell their ware. And I recognized a lot of them, especially Rabbi Isaacson, Zechroy. I was at his wedding, was 9 years old. And let me tell you, for him as a survivor, with his own rabbits before the war, winding up in Israel, and a rabbi in Israel, not knowing till I came to 1957, when I came to Los Angeles, and I heard about him, so I went to visit him. And it was like 11:30 in the morning. He was still davening in this whole house. He lived on Cockrell. And I went to him and I says, "Why are you davening in the house?" He says, "I have no place to go to daven because the shuls in the morning closing up. Nobody has an open shul. So I was forced to daven in my home." I says, "Rabbi, it's not right. We have to come to a solution. You have to open up a little bit of medrash for the survivors. For all the survivors that lived through Bergen-Belsen especially, I'm sure a lot of you here know, because I know a lot of them that do speak in the museum, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of things, but I just want to express my own feeling, what it means to say, to honor them, invited to speak for my own people. They usually speak for censors, for Catholic schools, for all kinds of people. The honor that I have today, that I can say, I would like to say thank you for coming here. Why was I picked to be here? Thanks to Mark. Mark said, Mr. Deutsch, I want you to come and I want you to sing Kaimel Rachman. I says, you know, I'm not a chazan, I'm just a gabbai. He says, I want you to do whatever you can and I appreciate you for being here. So let me tell you one thing. When I lived through Bergen-Belsen to describe what it meant, not a day or a year, we talked about hours. We finally got up in the morning and we said, well, we survived the night, hopeful there would be another night. But we were hungry, there was no food the last few days in Bergen-Belsen. This has led us completely to close our eyes to give up forever. But as a Jewish boy, as I grew up in a very religious home, I never gave up hope. Because life without hope is no life. Till the last minute, I could say to myself, I am not going to give up, because we felt nobody came in to bring us any food no more. So they left us to die, but praying to the Rebbeinu Shalom, I can still say Shema Yisrael in the morning, and that gave me extra more strength to be able to continue. So I survived in Bergen-Belsen. When I finally came to a hospital in the city in Celle, and I was scaled as a skeleton, 64 pounds, that the nurses in that Kutalik hospital could not believe. They were betting on me, I'm not going to live another night. So describe that feeling that I can come here, be 94 years old, to share my life with all of you. I don't want you to ever forget what it means to say a survivor. There's no way in the world you can describe that means, what it means as a survivor. All of us that survived concentration camp, Bergen-Belsen especially, is the greatest gift the Rebbeinu Shalom took upon us. And this is what I'm trying to express. The world should never forget. As a 90-year-old boy, to go through life and to be saying 94 years later, did I believe that will ever happen? But I always believe there's a Rebbeinu Shalom that is responsible for everyone's life here. And this is the thanks that I can say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Shechioni v'kimoni l'gman hazeh, that we had the opportunity to share our life with some of us, all survivors. All of us deserve a great appreciation, a great thanks for everyone to come here and to still share a life with any survivor. I know there's a few survivors here, they speak in the museum. I give them honor each time I walk there. After they had spoken, I take their places many a times. When they don't show up, Amram, can you help us out? I'm always there. I'm always available whenever they need me. I hope that the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'll be able to continue with all of you together, wishing everybody a happy life. This should never, in your lifetime, should ever be coming again, the sorrows that every Jew had to go through a lifetime. It's appreciating for all of you to come here to share my day to here today with all. Thank you very much. Thank you. The reason why I figured to myself it's important, because I understand this never happened here, because I knew what was going on in Florida and in New York. I never had the opportunity to be there. I said to Mark, I'll help you out, whatever is necessary. And that's the reason why I can say thank you to Mark a million times, that he's done some good job here, accumulating all the Romanian Jews. You have to remember, I grew up as a Romanian. Till 1939, I was going to Romanian schools. You think I remember Romania? Nothing, not zero. Why? Nobody spoke Romanian after the Hungarians came in Yamach, and nobody spoke Yiddish anymore. And not even Romanian, only Hungarians. Today, even Hungarian Jews don't speak Yiddish. I'm angry when they come into shul, that's all they speak is Hungarian. I don't like to hear it. So what I want to tell you, it's an opportunity for me to express that feeling, what it means, why is a Jew coming to a shul when they know I speak Yiddish, everybody speaks Yiddish. Why are you speaking Hungarian? Didn't they do enough? We have to ignore them altogether. And today, our president is always busy talking Hungarian, only Hungarian. I said, Andrew, don't you speak Yiddish? Yeah, but I like to speak Hungarian. So he's busy with the Hungarian government. For me to say, for me to express Hungarian, I don't want to go to that land. I have nothing there. That was not my land. I have nothing there. I don't even have a place to go for Keiver office. I lost my whole family from A to Z. Can anybody remember what it meant to say a survivor? The word a survivor, there's no way in the world anybody can understand it. When you live through with millions of lives in your body, that they take a shower one day a year, only in Auschwitz. Nobody had got showers. Only when the Bolsheviks gave us some water, that's when we had the opportunity to shake our lives off our body. They could not believe the pain that we endured. As a young boy, I was 19 years old. How did I live through it? So that's what I'm trying to express my feeling here of all of you, that you will understand me, because a lot of you are survivors, and I'm sure you all know what it meant to say, I'm a survivor. Appreciating for everyone that came here to listen to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate for being here. And you should have a good year for everyone. You should have a good year. And we should continue to live a long time together. Thank you very much. Let me express you a little bit what that picture means. I had the opportunity to go back in 1946 as a hobo on the train with my wife. I was married January 1, 1946. We decided to go back home. First of all, we stopped off in Krula. Unfortunately, my uncle's family was also 11. Nobody came home, only my wife. She was not my wife yet, but in 1946, she became my wife. So we went from Krula to Sighet. It took us a couple of days to go there with horse and buggy. So life was not as comfortable, but we looked forward to be home. My house was occupied by the Russians, so where am I supposed to go? They won't let me go to my own home. So we decided to go away to my grandparents' house, and next door the door was open. We were afraid to go in there, somebody might be living there. So we decided, we kept on calling names, we waited a couple hours, nobody came in. We decided to go to sleep. In the morning, we heard somebody speaking. I said to my wife, keep quiet. We don't know who they are, probably the owners of the house now. I found out that two of my older brothers from the right and to the left, they survived in Russia. What I want to try to tell you, you think they were like honey? No, because all of the boys that came out from Russia, they lost their toes. They froze their toes and they broke them off like icicles. Can anybody understand what that means? Even in Russia, the shoulders that they had, working like a horse, and not even giving them sometimes to eat. Besides this, they were lucky enough, they were liberated January the 8th, 1945, they were already home. So that's where I found my two older brothers. The surprise there was, my older brother, my Razek, the first one on the right, he was supposed to be married to my wife before the war in 1939. He was supposed to be Chusn and Kala. Unfortunately, he was taken away to the military, so he never saw my wife. So I'm a survivor with my wife together that I got, say, the first marriage in Bergen-Belsen, January 1, 1946. We were married, and we went home. When he saw me in the morning, he was white as the white shirt. He couldn't believe that I married his wife. So now you can understand what it means. We had no knowledge of what's going on to the world. We lost ourselves in a world that nobody knew who we were. So he survived from 1939 to 1945. He was lucky that he was home, except he lost the toes. Both of my brothers had no toes. So how's it possible? Since it was so bitter cold that they didn't even bleed for a split second. And that's how they survived. Very, very fortunate. So as you see me in the little corner there, the little boy, 19 years old, I lived through hell. Why am I saying that? Because Sighet was the poorest country of Romania. People had no food to go to sleep with. And how many nights I used to go to sleep without food? You think we can help each other? We cried ourselves to go to sleep. And that's what happens to a young boy, 19 years old, winding up in Auschwitz and surviving in Bergen-Belsen. Is there anything I can describe what it meant to every one of us here that went through the same thing? I hope that this will be a memory forever for everyone. Should never ever forget that. Thank you very much.
I would like to call upon Mr. Tibor Weinberger to come up, and he's going to read some words that were written by his wife, Kati Weinberger. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Tibor Weinberger. In the interest of full disclosure, I'm not a Carpathian Jew, but I feel I'm not an interloper here either. My connection to the Carpathians goes way back to the early 1940s in Budapest, where I was young, 10-year-old kid at the time. Refugees appeared in Budapest from the region of Carpathia. They would introduce themselves. I am Finn Marmaros, I am Finn Munkács, I am Finn Ungvár, I am Finn Beregszász. So they were immediately dubbed the Finns. That's what they called them. The Jews never lost their humor in Budapest. In addition, and more significantly, my wife, Kathy, is from Munkács, so her extended family adopted me as an honorary Carpathian. Looking around this room, there is no denying that many of us here are of certain age. With all the corollary symptoms that are too numerous to tally here. But there are certain advantages, not many, that we enjoy at this stage in our life. One aspect of it I do want to talk about. All of us grandparents take great pleasure in our grandchildren. They come to us with anticipation of the many indulgences we allow them that are denied at home. The carefree laughter of our grandchildren delights us and makes us forget our aches and pain. A win-win-win all around. What I'm describing is as wonderful as it is normal. And I emphasize the word normal, just part of normal life. There was a time when that normalcy was denied to too many of us here, alas, which brings me to an essay my wife Kathy wrote in 1995 while attending the Antioch College in Santa Monica. Kathy was born shortly after the war in 1947 in Mukachevo, which is the Russian name for Munkács. In 1953, she had started school, and I brought with me a rare photo of hers. I hope you can see this. This is my wife, Kathy, when she was 6 years old, in Munkács. Can you see it? She was a little girl with the mandatory bow in her hair. And I will now read a brief passage from her essay. And these are her words. In our apartment building in Munkács, we children played together and spent time in each other's homes. Perhaps it was then that I noticed first that my friends were welcomed by their babushka and dedushka. When I asked my parents what happened to my grandpa, they gave a short answer: they passed away. Their answer did not satisfy me because I knew that none of my cousins and my Jewish friends had grandparents either. How is this possible? Why did they all die so young? What happened to them? But I kept the questions to myself. For many years, a feeling of guilt gnawed at me. Did I do something bad, though I did not get as much love as others? Why am I different from them? Yes, I knew being Jewish is being different. Quite early, I sensed the anti-Semitism that was all around us, even in school, where teachers badmouthed Jews as being money grubbers and unpatriotic. Yes, I was a Jew whose mother and her two sisters and my grandparents were taken to Auschwitz. There, my grandparents and many of my relatives were murdered. My mom and her sisters did survive. My father too survived the harrowing time he spent as a forced laborer in the Hungarian army. As I grew older, my sense of guilt faded. Still, I have always felt that I missed out on that special love, the cuddling, the gentle touch of an older hand that only grandparents can provide. In 1980, I attended a trade group meeting of the Eastern Bloc countries in Krakow, Poland. A few delegates from East Germany, Russia, and Hungary accepted an invitation to visit Auschwitz. I was at the gravesite of my murdered grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, and my cousins. At last, I was able to say a silent goodbye to them. On our way back, I could not hold back the tears. The Germans could not bear to look at me, while the Russians were visibly shaken. They never heard of Auschwitz. They were ignorant of the Red Army's liberation of Auschwitz. Soviet history books omitted the dreaded name. These were Kathy's recollections. And here we are, these are my words now. And here we are surrounded by our friends, our loved ones, and most of all, our grandchildren. My 8 grandchildren, Kathy's, are here with us today. We all came here to remember and to celebrate all those who survived, like Kathy's mother and father who passed away some years ago, but especially those who are still among us here today, who were able to put the horrors they went through behind them, who did not wallow in the hurt, overcame depression and self-pity, and heroically set out to rebuild their lives, their families, and reassert their Jewishness. And mostly, they tried to shield their children of their horrid memories so as not to burden them. As we recall every year on Passover, our suffering and deliverance from slavery some 3,500 years ago, so we must remember that evil forces tried to eliminate the Jewish people from the face of the world in our lifetime. As we honor the survivors from Carpathia, all of them heroes in the true sense of the word, who did their share in rebuilding of the Jewish life, so we can all say, Am Yisrael Ham. Thank you very much.
Shall we call up the survivors who would like to come and light a candle in memory of all of our loved ones who were killed in the Shoah? Are there survivors who are able to come to the table here and light a candle? what the certificates say. They say, from the Association of Zaakarpattia Jews in Israel, Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is granted to you by the children of Holocaust survivors from Zaakarpattia. With great respect, we acknowledge your heroic survival in the face of the unimaginable Nazi brutality. We deeply appreciate both your unwavering confidence and emunah in the survival of the Jewish nation and your tireless contributions to the continuous flourishing of Jewish life. So each survivor will get one of these certificates, and the first one goes to Sandy Gross Ackerman. Hetty Schwartz-Ferber. Renee Firestone.
Just a minute, we'll take a picture, Joe. Look up.
Augie Frankel. Is it Margaret?
This is Margaret
Frida Goldstein. Miriam Lieberman Crow. This is Mr. Abraham Berger, who will recite the Kaddish now.
Yisgadal v'yiskadash Shemai Rabo V'yol moti berucher usai v'yamlich malchisai B'chayai choin, Ibyoimai choin, Ibchayai dechol bais Yisruel B'agula Ibzman kuhref v'emeri umein Mayahai Shemai Rabo Mavuraich Leyulam Elolmai Olmayu Yezeburach, Veyesetabach, Veyesepuvar, Veyeseroemaim, Veyesenasai, Veyesador, Veyesalei, Veyesalobol, Shemai de Kedeshu Beriuchu, Le'aylu min kol berchusa, Vesheroso, Tezbechuso, Venechamasu, Namiram Beyalma, V'yemrei Umababai, Mayahai Shalomu Rahu Meshamayu, V'chayemu Lahni V'alkol Yisruva Babai, V'yemrei Umababai, Oy say Shuloim B'meroim Abo, V'yan say Shuloim Ulayno, V'alkol Yisrovai, V'yemrei Umabai.
I would appreciate everyone, please rise. If it's possible, if you're able-bodied, please rise. Rachamim, Shvechem, Babroibim. I'm sorry, Bechoinu, Achazkapa Ashkeno, the Malois, Kedoshim, Etoirim, Yizor Rekira, Mazirem, Virim, Mazirem, Stishma Zachari, V'nai Yisruel, Hagdoshim, V'atoirim, Shnofli, Midai Lezchem, Ishbechitumam, Be'ashvos, Medanek, Troblinka, Kamenet, Podlask, Ebensee, Mathosen, Bergen-Belsen, Ruchenwald. Yishar Machnes, Hashemot Beirupu, Shenhergi, Shenistefi, V'nishishbechi, V'nikburachayim, Chamisset Meshoynes, V'achzorios, Akidesh Hashem, V'avor, Shenachni B'nayim, V'nesayim Achayim, V'chesayim, Ladon Tzedekabat Azkuris Nishmesayim, V'ganayden, Tamen Nechusom, Luchem Balrachmim, Astirem Seiseknuf Avloilumen, Tzroy B'tzorachayim, Nishmosam, Adonai Nachlosom, Niche B'Sholom Shkuvam, V'naymar Amen.
Now I'd like to call on Mr. David Lenga. I'm so happy to have him. He is another honorary Carpathian by marriage, and his wife, actually, coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, comes from the great metropolis of Yasin, Czechoslovakia, Yasinya, Ukraine nowadays, to sing the song of the partisans, Zognet Mal, which was written in honor of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, which took place 75 years ago and is now considered an anthem of the Holocaust survivors. And you can find it in transliteration on your sheets and also in Hebrew, which is the language Yiddish is written in, on your sheets. And I think he'll explain it a little better than I can, why it fills all survivors with such pride.
I'm born in Lodz, Poland. I'm a survivor of the Holocaust. I was married to a wonderful, wonderful woman by the name of Charlotte Katz. She was from Jasina, Czechoslovakia. We were married for 55 years. I want to dedicate this song not only to her memory, but to all those that perished during the war, especially the Carpathian Jews who we memorialize tonight. So I'm going to sing it to you in Yiddish. This song has evoked great emotions because it was written in the darkest time of Jewish history during the war, and yet it permeates with hope for a better tomorrow. Zoek de schemel als die geest den letzten Weg. Gott Himmel nur en verstellen blue Tag. Weil kommen wird noch unser ausgewählte Schuh. Es wird abbeugt und unser Trockner seinen Do. Weil kommen wird noch unser ausgewählte Schuh. Es wird abbeugt und unser Trockner seinen Do. Von grünen Palmenland bis in weiten Lampen Schnee. Wir kommen mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wie gefallen ist dieser Sprotz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird noch unser Gewehre, unser Mut. Und wie gefallen ist dieser Sprotz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird noch unser Gewehre, unser Mut. Es ist kein Liedl für Nacht der Nachten und frei. So ein Volk zwischen Falle dicke Wände, durchs Liedige singen mit Naganes in die Hand. So ein Volk zwischen Falle dicke Wände, durchs Liedige singen mit Naganes in die Hand. Zug nicht Kämel aus der Geist am letzten Weg. Gott Himmel bloen verstellen grohe Tag. Weil kommen wird doch unser ausgebänkte Schuh. Es wird abbeugt und unser Trockner seinen Do. Weil kommen wird doch unser ausgebänkte Schuh. Es wird abbeugt und unser Trockner seinen Do.
What do they say in Yasina? Once a Yasiner, always a Yasiner, even an honorary Yasiner.
Well, I think we and Claire Firestone and Kanti Weinberg and all the countless people who helped us put this together want to thank you all for coming. I hope it was as meaningful for all of you as it was for us. If there was a mix-up with the certificates and you didn't get one, please let me or Kati or somebody know and we will make sure that you get one, okay? And thank you so much again.
Thank you very much again. Thank you to the musicians, and thank you to Myra Gabe.